There is a number your landlord knows that you do not. It is not your rent. You know your rent. It is the exact percentage by which your rent will grow every single year, and the precise gap between that percentage and the raise your employer will offer you at your next review. Your landlord knows this gap. The property management company knows this gap.
The real estate investment fund that owns your building knows this gap. You do not. And that gap, invisible, consistent, and compounding, is the real reason that no matter how hard you work, no matter how many times your salary increases, you finish every year feeling exactly the same. Meet Marcus. 29 years old, graphic designer, 3 raises in 4 years. Each one felt like progress.
Each one disappeared before the next quarter arrived.
Meet Elena. 31 years old, nurse. Same city, 1 deliberate housing decision made 3 years ago. Today she is building $400 of real financial margin every single month. Same city, same cost of living, different outcome. Today we are going to show you why your rent is the most powerful financial force in your life, and why nobody in your employer's HR department, your bank, or your government is going to sit you down and explain what it is actually doing to your financial future.
Marcus remembers his first raise, 2 years into his career. His manager called him in, told him his work had been noticed. His salary was going up by 4%. Marcus thanked him, walked back to his desk, and spent the rest of the afternoon calculating what 4% would mean for his monthly take-home, $86 a month. He told himself he would save it, all of it, every month. That was 4 years ago. Marcus has had 3 raises since then. Combined they have added $219 to his monthly take-home, and yet Marcus cannot identify a single thing in his financial life that has improved. His savings balance looks almost identical to what it looked like 4 years ago. His credit card carries the same low-level balance it always has. His emergency fund has never crossed $2,000. Every raise, the same feeling. Last year, Marcus sat down and tried to understand it. He went through his bank statements month by month. He tracked every category. He built a spreadsheet that took him an entire Saturday to complete. What he found in that spreadsheet changed the way he understood every financial decision he had ever made. In the 4 years, Marcus had received 3 raises totaling $219 per month in additional take-home.
Pay, his rent had increased by $260 per month. His raises had not made him richer. They had made him $41 a month poorer in real terms, and he had never noticed because the rent increases had always arrived quietly, 6 weeks before each new salary took effect. Marcus had been running faster every year just to fall further behind. Elena had seen this coming.
She had watched colleagues go through the same cycle for 2 years before she made a different decision. A decision most people in her city considered either impossible or extreme. A decision that changed her financial trajectory completely. There are 4 mechanisms driving this trap. 4 invisible forces that make rent the most powerful wealth destroyer for ordinary earners in any major city. The rent velocity gap, the raise illusion, the mobility tax, the compounding anchor. That is what we are covering today.
Here is what we are covering today. First, the rent velocity gap. Why rent grows at a rate that structurally outpaces salary growth for ordinary earners, and why this gap widens every single year regardless of how well you perform at work. Second, the raise illusion. Why your salary increase is worth dramatically less than the number your employer announces once. Tax, rent absorption, and cost of living movement are applied. Third, the mobility tax. The hidden financial cost of staying in a city where rent velocity is highest, and what the numbers actually say about the trade-off most people never calculate. Fourth, the compounding anchor. How years of rent at above income growth levels permanently delays the first real wealth building milestone and what that delay actually costs over a decade. Let us begin. Marcus's rent 4 years ago was $1,200 a month. His rent today is $1,460 a month. That is an increase of $260 a month. $3,120 a year. In 4 years, his rent has grown by 21.7%. In the same 4 years, his salary has grown by 14.3%. The gap between those two numbers, 7.4 percentage points, is the rent velocity gap. It is not unique to Marcus. It is not unique to his city. It is a structural feature of how housing costs and wage growth interact in every major English-speaking city in the world right now. Here is why this gap exists and why it is permanent. Rent is set by the property market.
The property market is driven by demand, supply constraints, investment returns, and construction costs. None of those forces have any relationship to your salary.
Your landlord does not look at your payslip when setting the renewal rate. They look at comparable rents in the building, in the street, in the suburb. They look at what the market will absorb. Your salary is set by your employer. Your employer looks at productivity, budget, inflation adjustments, and what the labour market will accept. They do not look at your rent when deciding your raise.
There is no mechanism, not one, that connects the rate at which your housing costs grow to the rate at which your income grows. These two numbers move independently. And because housing costs are driven by investment returns and asset appreciation, which historically outpace wage growth, the gap does not close over time. It widens. In Marcus's city, average rents have grown by 31% over the past 5 years. Average salaries for his income bracket have grown by 17% over the same period. 14 percentage points of gap. Compounding every year. Marcus did not create this gap. His spending habits did not create this gap. His career choices did not create this gap. The gap was already there when he signed his first lease. It was built into the structure of the city he chose to live in, and nobody told him to calculate it before he committed to it. Elena calculated it before she committed. She looked at the 5-year rent growth rate in 3 different areas of the city before she chose where to live. She found one area where rent velocity was significantly lower, an outer suburb with improving transport links, and she chose it deliberately. Her rent has grown by 11% in 3 years. Her salary has grown by 16% in the same period. For the first time in her adult life, Elena's income is growing faster than her housing cost. That 5 percentage point difference is now producing $400 of real financial margin every single month. Marcus never ran this calculation. He simply signed where the apartment was available.
Marcus's most recent raise was 5%. His manager presented it as a significant investment in Marcus by the company. The HR letter used the word substantial. His colleagues who received 3% looked at his 5 with something close to envy. Here is what 5% actually delivered. Marcus's gross salary before the raise was $52,000 a year. 5% of $52,000 is $2,600 in gross additional income. After income tax at his marginal rate, that $2,600 becomes approximately $1,730 of additional take-home per year, $144 per month. His rent renewal arrived 6 weeks later. The increase was $48 per month.
His grocery costs had risen by an average of 9% over the prior 12 months. Applied to his monthly grocery spend, that is an additional $31 per month.
His energy bills had increased by 11%. Additional $14 per month. His transport costs, fuel, maintenance, public transport had risen by 7%. additional $18 per month. Total additional cost of living pressure in the 12 months. Following his raise, $111 per month.
His raise delivered $144 per month in additional take-home. The real gain after cost of living absorption, $33 per month. $33. From a raise his manager called substantial, from a percentage point his colleagues envied. Marcus did not know this. He felt the raise arrive. He felt it disappear. He assumed he was bad with money. He is not bad with money. He is simply living in a cost environment where a 5% salary increase delivers $33 of real monthly gain, and nobody in the entire transaction told him that was the number he should have been evaluating. Elena knew this number before she negotiated her last raise. She had built a simple tracking system, cost of living movement against salary movement, tracked quarterly. When her employer offered her 4%, she came back with data showing her real cost of living had increased by 6.2% in the prior 12 months. She negotiated 6.5%, not because she was aggressive, because she had the number. Marcus has never had the number. He has only ever had the percentage his manager announced, and the vague feeling that it was never quite enough. Marcus has thought about moving. Every year for 3 years he has opened a property search website and looked at rents in outer suburbs, satellite towns and smaller cities, where the numbers look fundamentally different, and every year he has closed the browser without acting. Because moving has a cost that the lower rent never fully appears to cover, at least not immediately, and because the city has things the outer suburb does not. Career proximity, social, infrastructure. The sense that leaving would mean giving something up. What Marcus has never calculated is the mobility tax he is paying for staying. The mobility tax is the cumulative financial cost of remaining in a high rent velocity location versus the alternative. It is not about whether the city is worth it, it is simply about knowing the price. Here is Marcus's mobility tax. The difference between his current rent and an equivalent apartment.
In a lower rent velocity area 30 minutes further out is $280 per month, $3,300, and $60 per year. Over 3 years, the period he has been contemplating the move, that is $10,080. $10,080 that has flowed from Marcus's account to his landlord's investment portfolio, not because Marcus chose to spend it, because he chose not to calculate it. The counter-argument Marcus always makes to himself is the career cost. Being close to the city means proximity to opportunities, clients and industry events. That proximity has value. It does. But Marcus has never quantified that value either. He has assumed it is worth the premium without ever testing the assumption. Elena tested it.
She moved 35 minutes further out 3 years ago. Her commute extended by 22 minutes each way.
That is 44 minutes a day, approximately 14 hours a month of additional commuting time. In exchange, she recovered $280 of monthly rent differential. $280 divided by 14 hours is $20 per hour of commuting time. Elena decided her commuting time was worth $20 an hour to her financial future.
She has not questioned that decision once in 3 years. In those 3 years, she has accumulated over $10,000 in savings that Marcus, in the same city, earning within 8% of her salary, has not accumulated. The mobility tax is not a judgment about where to live. It is simply a number, and numbers that are never calculated are always paid without knowing it. Marcus is 29 years old. If he continues on his current trajectory, rent growing faster than his salary, raises absorbed before they land, savings never, crossing $2,000, he will reach 35 with approximately the same net worth he has today, not because he is reckless, because the compounding anchor is. holding him in place. The compounding anchor is what happens when housing costs consume the income that should be entering the compounding cycle. Every month that Marcus's rent absorbs his raise is a month where no new capital enters the system. And every month where no new capital enters the system is a month where the compounding effect, the single most powerful force in personal wealth building, is producing nothing for Marcus. Here is the precise cost of that delay. If Marcus could recover $200 per month in real financial margin, the approximate equivalent of eliminating his rent velocity gap, and invest it consistently from age 29 at a conservative 6% annual return, he would have $46,800 by age 45. He currently has $2,000 saved. The gap between those two numbers is not the result of 16 years of different decisions.
It is the result of one decision, or rather one non-decision, made at 25 when he signed his first city centre lease without running the rent velocity. Calculation. That one unsigned calculation has been compounding against him for 4 years. It will compound against him for another 16 if nothing changes. This is why the rent trap is more dangerous than any other financial trap for young earners.
A bad spending decision costs you once. A subscription you forgot about costs you 12 times a year.
But a structural housing cost that grows faster than your income costs you every month, compounds against every raise, and delays your entry into the wealth building cycle for years, sometimes for a decade or more. Elena understood this at 28. She ran the compounding calculation before she ran any other. Financial calculation. She asked one question: at my current savings rate, when do I accumulate enough to make my first real wealth building move? The answer at city centre rents was age 39. The answer at outer suburb rents, with the same salary and the same spending habits, was age 33. She moved at 28. She is 31 now and on track for age 33. Marcus is 29 and on track for age 39. The same salary.
The same city. 10 years apart. Because of one calculation Elena ran and Marcus never did. Elena did not solve this by earning more. She did not solve it by cutting her lifestyle to the point where every month felt like a punishment. She solved it by running 3 numbers before she signed anything. The first number was rent velocity, the 5-year growth rate of rents in every area she considered living in. Not the current rent, the growth rate. Because the current rent is what you pay today, the growth rate is what you commit to for every year you stay. The second number was the real raise, what her salary increase actually delivered after tax, after rent absorption, after cost of. Living movement, not the percentage her employer announced, the real number in her account after everything else had moved. The third number was the compounding delay, how many years her current housing cost was pushing back her first real wealth. Building milestone, not a vague sense of being behind, an actual age, 33 versus 39. 3 numbers.
One Saturday afternoon. A decision that changed the trajectory of everything that followed. Marcus has the same ability to run these numbers. He always did. The information is not hidden. The calculation is not complicated. What was missing was not intelligence or discipline or income. What was missing was the knowledge that these were the numbers that mattered.
That rent velocity, not rent price, was the variable to interrogate. That his raise had a real value different from the announced value. That his compounding delay had an exact cost measured in years. Nobody told Marcus to run these calculations. His employer did not tell him. His bank did not tell him. His landlord certainly did not tell him. But the numbers were always there, and they are still there now. Marcus is not behind because he made the wrong choices. He is behind because he made the invisible choices, the ones that feel like non-decisions because nobody frames them as decisions at all. Signing a lease without checking rent velocity is not a mistake, It is simply a gap in the information you were given, and you cannot be expected to run a calculation nobody told you existed. But you know it now. The rent velocity gap is real. It is running in every city your target demographic calls home. It is compounding quietly against every raise your employer will ever offer you. And it will keep running unless you run the numbers first. Elena is not exceptional. She is simply someone who ran 3 numbers before she committed to a structure that would govern her finances for years. Marcus can run those numbers today. So can you. The question is not whether you can afford your rent. The question is whether your rent is affording you a future. If this video showed you something about your own rent that you had never calculated before, share it with someone who is about to sign a lease without running these numbers. Because the rent velocity trap works exactly the way all the best traps work. Quietly, legally, with your full participation and zero awareness. Subscribe to WealthBeyond for a new money truth every single week. No noise, no shortcuts.
No investment tips, just the real numbers behind the financial structures you are already living inside. And if you want to start calculating your own financial freedom date, the link to our free savings goal calculator is in the description below. We will see you next week.